Hello everybody, my name is Kate Oloff and welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to really be doing a weekly update. I think we're going to be doing these weekly.
Yeah.
Last week we kind of just talked general market, interest rates, is it going to be, will it ever be a good time to buy a house? And this week we're just going to be discussing some 0% down options if you are looking to buy. Dalton, you want to introduce yourself, kind of what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dalton Lafreniere. I'm a loan officer with Movement Mortgage. I've been in the real estate industry for about 3 or 4 years now. Worked under a top 1% team, off on my own now, so I'm using my knowledge to help first-time home buyers, repeat buyers, investors, all alike to attain their home ownership goals and build wealth.
Nice. So one of the things, Dalton, I know for sure that you're seeing, but I'm seeing as a real estate agent, is there's a lot of buyers right now who want to buy a home. And the issue that at least we've been seeing is like they don't have any money saved up for a down payment. So if you're totally new to home buying, typically, the average person is, going to buy a home, they put some portion of that home purchase down when they close on the home, and the rest of the purchase price is carried in a loan or a mortgage. And that's what people pay over, the course of 30 years typically. But recently, whether you believe it's the economy, inflation, whatever, American spending, most people don't have a substantial amount of money to be able to put down. And so this week we're just going to go over some options with Dalton as far as what are programs out there or resources that are available to people if they don't have the down payment or substantial down payment to still be able to buy. So Dalton, I know just because we do them together, deals together, that there are several options.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just kind of go over a breakdown just very quickly, like what those options are.
Sure.
In a nutshell.
So let's start from the beginning. Let's break down kind of what you as a buyer have to expect going into the home buying process. And I think this is important so people can know, it's not just the down payment. So when you look at purchasing a home, you have a couple different categories of fees involved. One being the real estate agent. However, good news is that typically that's paid by the seller.
Correct.
Now, as a buyer, what you have is your down payment and your closing costs. They're two different things, and those factor into your cash to close. So with your down payment, that can range anywhere from 0 to 3 to 3.5% to 20% down. There's a lot of different options there. Closing costs are usually a non-negotiable unless your agent, who is a professional negotiator, can negotiate with the seller to pay for those. Now, look, we're going to focus in on the down payment today just because we want to talk about some of those programs. Now, as far as down payment goes, there's programs that offer no down payment, and then there's programs that offer to cover your down payment, and then there's grants. So there's 3 different really types of categories that can help you minimize your cash to close. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I appreciate that breakdown. Specifically for first-time home buyers, obviously, who goes buying a home all the time? It's, for most people, they're doing it maybe 2 to 3 times in their lifetime, if that. But you got to do it once. So for the first-time home buyer, understanding that breakdown is super important. Mm-hmm. Let's maybe just focus on 2 today. Let's stay out of the grant
Sure.
scenario, and let's just focus in on the programs and the coverages.
Sure. So your first one is going to be your 0% down programs. And depending on what your scenario is as a buyer will really depend on what you qualify for. So the big 2 no down payment programs, and I say that loosely because again you have closing costs, but as far as max financing, 0% down, you have VA and you have USDA. So USDA is a geographical restriction, which means that as a buyer you have to look in specific areas to qualify for that. And then you have VA, which is very common, a lot of people know what it is, but essentially what it is if you are a veteran or active duty military, you can qualify for 0% down. Now there's pros and cons to both of them. Typically with USDA, you have reduced mortgage insurance, you do have that no down payment, and you actually have a lower rate most of the time. With VA, you don't have any mortgage insurance. There is a funding fee that gets financed, but again, it's lower than typical market interest rates comparable to, let's say, FHA or conventional.
Gotcha. So that's USDA, VA. Are there any other, because those are federally backed loans, correct? As far as your company is concerned, or any lender really out there for that matter, they then do have their own programs, if you will, that offer that coverage. That would be the second scenario we're kind of talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So your second option is down payment assistance. Typically, those will either come from the company itself, which offers specific programs, which Movement offers a really good one. I'll talk about that in a second. Your other one is going to be sponsored through your county, your city, your state, which can be something in our area is called Pima Tucson Homebuyer Solution. It's a down payment assistance program that has certain extra restrictions that you couple with an FHA or VA or USDA financing, typically FHA. And then our in-house program, we call it Movement Boost. It's really great. It offers lower than typical DPA program, because what you have to understand is that free money is not always free. It's paid back in some way. With the state or county sponsored down payment assistance programs, it usually comes in the trade-off of a higher interest rate for the overall loan. With our Movement Boost, you can get market rates. And then there's a lot less restrictions as far as debt to income ratio, credit scores. That's really just plays scenario to scenario. But you do have those two options. It really just depends on what your scenario looks like, what's going to be best for you. Typically, I would say is your lender that offers an in-house one will usually have a little bit better, a little bit more attractive terms and features.
Understood. So for anyone watching who's a buyer, okay, your options for zero money out of pocket, we'll say, obviously there is that closing cost aspect that you can either front or you can try and negotiate. But for that down payment specifically, if they want to go the federally backed way, they can either go USDA or VA. If you're not military, forget the VA. And if you want a specific part of town, usually like high population areas, USDA is probably not an option. So like your federally backed loans, if you are a buyer looking to do 0% down, those options are out. If you are looking for like maybe a more specific area, high density area, and still want to do 0% down, your options would then be those coverages like a specific lender and their specific programs, or the county within which you reside or are looking to buy. Is that?
Yeah, so those are the actual thing of what you think of down payment assistance. So the lender program or the state or county sponsored program, those are your true down payment assistance. The loan types, those are just kind of niche. If you fit into them, they're really great, but they're a little bit more restrictive in terms of, like I said, area, if you're a veteran, so on and so forth. But there's some down payment assistance programs that are really great. I'm biased, but our Movement Boost program is amazing, and it fits a lot more buyers than, let's say, that county-sponsored one, because they're a little bit more restrictive.
Understood. So that's a great breakdown, and I appreciate the insight on that. If you guys want any information on like the specifics of those loan programs, if you qualify, if those programs will fit what you're looking for in regards to a home, Dalton's contact info will be in the bio, and you can reach out to him directly. Typically when we do like buyer consultations, it's really the first step when working with us anyway, but Dalton can service you whether you use me or not. He will find a program that best fits you in your situation. Before we end the video, let's talk quickly about the difference between, a little more detail about the difference between down payment and closing costs.
Sure.
Again, often people, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, you may just think it's all one kind of cost, and you may not really understand. So we went over down payment. What are the costs associated that would come up with the closing costs? Like, what is that? What are you paying for?
Yeah, sure. So, taking away down payment assistance, we'll just look at a scenario like if you came in with your own down payment. Let's say you're putting 5% down on $300,000. What's that number? That's $15,000.
$15,000. Yeah,
right.
$15,000.
So you have $15,000, and then your closing costs can vary. So typically, I like to say it's going to be about 2% of your total purchase price. So, you know,
6 grand.
Yeah. So 6 grand. That's the different fees involved in the transaction. So there's a number of things that it includes, but typically it's going to include the title insurance, your prepaid taxes and insurance payments, the lender's fees, which vary lender to lender. If you're paying your rate down at all, which that would depend on where the rate atmosphere is at any given time. That's something we would work with you as a lender. And then that's really the big gist of it. You have your title fees, your lender's fees, and then your prepaids. HOA if you have that. But traditionally it's a few categories like that, and it usually is around that 2% of your purchase price. So when you are a buyer, and Cade can preface this for you, working with a lender, they'll tell you about it. You want to go into it expecting not just the down payment, but closing costs as well. But there's also good news. When you work with a professional agent, they can help you cover some of those closing costs, or even all of them. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we're talking about the difference between down payment and closing costs. Let's say you only had sufficient amount of monies for your down payment, and you didn't really want to use those monies for closing costs. So one thing we could look at doing, depending on the specific property you're interested in buying, is actually requesting what's called seller concessions from the seller at the close of escrow. And essentially what this is monies, it's really the seller's monies coming from the proceeds of their sale that they credit to you. And, you know, when working with Dalton, he can work out what those, you know, monies are used for. Typically we can get all of your closing costs covered. Like he said, if you want to buy down your rate, we can use those monies to buy down your rate. And you know, depending on the loan program and depending on what financing you're getting, you know, we can ask for anywhere up to 6% of the sales price in concessions, which could be upwards of like $20,000 that you could use to, you know, help the cash to close figure. Because again, the whole point we're making this video, a lot of people don't have cash to close. They want to buy, they maybe make good income, this and that, but they don't have a substantial amount of money to put down. And so that's one thing we could look at as well. Obviously it's property specific, so there are nuances to that, and obviously the seller has to agree. But you know, we can negotiate that on your guys' behalf as well. Dalton, do you have any other pointers you want to briefly discuss? Or
yeah, so a couple of closing thoughts is when you do go into buying a home, if you're a first-time home buyer, you want to make sure that you get educated. So you want to work with a professional lender as well as a professional real estate agent that can guide you through that process. Because again, you don't do it every single day. Typically, if you are a home buyer, you buy a home maybe every 7 years, if that. So it's not something you do every day. So you want to make sure that you're well educated and you know what you're getting into. Especially in this market, there's a lot of things changing. There's a lot of new things coming up. There's, you know, you have to look at the overall picture. I think we talked about this last week. A big thing to look at is your equity gains versus what you're paying monthly versus what your interest rate is. And you want to be able to know that, am I making a sound investment? Because that's what real estate is. It's an investment. So you want to make sure that you're making good on the money that you're putting down. And that kind of ties back to down payment assistance and what you're putting into the game, or your skin in the game, if you will. Because the less you can come in with, and this is a good strategy, the less you can come in with, the higher return on investment you'll have. Because your money's working for you as a real estate investment, you're gaining equity, you're building your net worth. And that's one thing that I like to educate clients on, is that this is a great, great, great tool to build generational wealth.
yeah, and I think, I don't know the exact figure, but it's somewhere in like 50 to 80% of all millionaires got there through real estate. So it's not this idea that, you know, there's millionaires out there buying, you know, hundreds of homes and that's how they gained wealth. It's really just the fact that there are average just looking people and Americans out there that, because they purchased homes over the course of their lifetime, not that they're an avid real estate investor, just the fact that they purchased homes, they are now millionaires. Their net worth is in the millions because they own property. So that's, I think, your point, right? Mm-hmm. So guys, if you have any questions specifically regarding purchasing homes, down payment assistance, different loan products out there, or just real estate questions in general, like I said, our contact info will be down in the description below. If you are a interested buyer looking to purchase a home, like I said earlier as well, the first step would be meeting with Dalton and I in a consultation to learn more about your goals and see how we can help you. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time.
Thanks, guys.